Have you ever wondered what would happen if the sun disappeared? The sun is very important to the earth and your daily activities. The sun heats the seas, stirs our atmosphere, generates weather patterns, and provides energy to the plants, which in turn gives us oxygen and food here on earth. This is just a few basic ways the sun has great meaning to us. Now I'm going to give you a timeline of what would happen if the sun disappeared. Only 8 minutes after the sun disappears, there would be no gravitational pull. If there's no gravitational pull, which this pull would come from the sun, then every single planet would stop in its orbit and therefore would travel through space in a straight line. Shortly after losing the gravitational pull, we would be plunged into complete darkness. At first, you wouldn't be able to notice, only because of how fast light travels. But it only takes 9 minutes for us to be plunged into space and complete darkness. Another point that is important is that we would no longer be able to see the moon. The sun's light reflects on the moon, which is the only reason why we see it now. So, if the sun disappears, we would no longer see it. But on the other hand, we would be able to see the stars, since they have their own source of light. And after a few days of flying through space and complete darkness, the Earth would have unbearable temperatures. Currently, the Earth is at 300 Kelvin, but this would drop to 150 Kelvin in just a few months. 2 months after dropping from 150 Kelvin, it would drop to 75 Kelvin. And if you want to know how cold that is, water's freezing point is 273 Kelvin. Now that I've given you 3 major points of what would happen if the sun disappeared, what do you think would survive in these conditions? Even after the sun being gone for a few days, microorganisms would most likely be the only microorganism living. But they only would survive in the crust due to the heat from the core. Even most bacteria wouldn't survive in these conditions. The only solution and real chance for human survival would be if we lived in submarines in the deepest part of the ocean, where there would be warmth. And the other option would be to build a totally isolated habitation zone. And weeks after the sun being gone, photosynthesis would no longer happen. Plants wouldn't be able to photosynthesize as soon as the sunlight stopped. However, there would be enough oxygen in the air to last for a while. And along with photosynthesis, only scavengers would survive longer than others, with the bottom levels of the food chain dying off quickly. Other animals would follow suit soon after. And however, natural scavengers would survive a bit longer, since they would be living off the dead bodies of other beings. In 2 months of no sunlight, the ocean surfaces would freeze. Every single surface of the ocean would freeze, with only very little sea life, which live on the deep sea floor. Having any chance of survival, these are a lot of major changes to Earth that really shows how important it is to everyday life. Several decades, large trees would be the only plant life to survive several decades from now, without going through photosynthesis. And after 1,000 years, the surface of the ocean would completely freeze. This would insulate the actual bodies of the water, but this means the water wouldn't freeze for thousands of years. Also, at this point in time, the atmosphere would collapse completely, and at the point where the oceans would freeze entirely, and the Earth is at a temperature of about -400 degrees Fahrenheit. And the atmosphere will have completely collapsed in. After this happens, it will expose the harsh cosmic radiation from space.